Welcome to the video. This painting has been a bit of a struggle. I found amongst my old art supplies a very old pad of art rough watercolour paper that was so old that it was manufactured in France. I have avoided rough paper in the last few years because I find it difficult. I prefer cold pressed. There's only about 3 or 4 sheets still in it, and I decided to use one of them for this painting. But the paper was not my problem with this one. The problem was about my chosen subject matter and the weather. It was terribly hot, extremely humid, and we were flooding and having cyclonic winds. On Christmas morning, I woke to see that one of my trees had come down and crashed into my next door neighbour's car shed. Fortunately, it missed the house. Emergency services removed the tree after a week or 2, and the car shed is unfortunately still looking at a pitiful wreck. But there were people all around the community with trees through their houses, as lots of people were in massive trouble. Fortunately, the only problem I really had was the stress of the tree coming down and a lot of flooding. There was many people were flooded, and of course the houses, with the lack of tradespeople and building supplies that we're suffering at the moment. There's people whose houses have been completely demolished that are being told that it'll be at least 2 years before they are able to rebuild. So I suspect this car shed's going to stay in a wreck for quite some time. I need some work done on my house, but I can't get it done because there's nobody available to do it. Apparently we need about 90,000 more tradespeople in the building industry to start to get the houses fixed and up to date and new houses built. I'm not in an area that floods, but we had terrible humidity and terrible heat all of the way up to the end of February and part of the way into March. It's been cooled for the last few days, so I'm happy to get back to my artwork. But there's just been another cyclone and we're copping a lot of rain from it, and it's been pouring with rain for the last few days, and as a result everything inside the house is very damp because of the humidity. And my painting, the paper, everything is sort of soggy. Not really, you can't wring it out, but it's just not dry. At least it's cool. I can work with the damp, keep the windows open to stop the mold from growing. As for the problems with my subject matter, I was trying to do something from memory with only a very old sketch, and I found the sketch when I was tidying up and I crumpled it up and threw it away, and then I thought maybe I could do a painting based on that. The little ornament is something I was given when I was extremely young, was probably about 2 or 3 years old. And it was a little porcelain shepherdess with a lamb on a metal chain, and she was holding a shepherd's crook as well. There were several days or sometimes even weeks between my painting sessions. I was having a lot of problems with the heat and the humidity, and I was also struggling with my thoughts on how to approach this painting. I had done the drawing years ago when I came across her in a plastic box, and all of her that was left was her head and a little bit of her shoulders and the bottom of the skirt and the lamb and the metal pieces. The torso has crumbled away to a white powder, so I couldn't refer to her, and yet I had decided I was going to do a realistic image of her, but I couldn't remember the details of what she looked like. All I had to work with was that drawing, and I was suffering stress from the thought that how am I going to do this? After a few weeks of struggling with that idea, I decided I would just do something, anything would do. It doesn't have to look exactly like her, but I got it as close as I could remember. When I was working on the doll's face, I was using a very fine, I think a 00 brush to just mark in where her lips were. I think in the end I didn't get them in quite the right spot, and I used that same brush for the eyelashes and eyebrows of her and the lamb. I was struggling with trying to work out what to do with the background. I didn't want her to just be on a white background. Originally, I had always imagined her being high up on the side of a mountain with snow-capped peaks behind. But I grew up in the tropics, and that just wouldn't fit where this little porcelain figure spent its time in real life. After spending several weeks struggling with the idea of the mountains and the snow, I came up with so many reasons to not do that I then had decided, well, I would abandon that idea. And the next thing that occurred to me was a beach with palm trees. And I stuck to that idea for a few weeks as well. But then it just wasn't working for me, because she just didn't look like she belonged on a beach, and we didn't live at the beach, we lived inland. Not very far inland, we could drive to the beach in half an hour, but still, it wasn't really a beach house where we lived. Once I'd done the initial work on her face, I wet the background, the sky area in particular, and then I put at the very top of the page I put a blue, and under that it was pink, and then I did a yellowish stripe underneath the pink. It's sort of like the skies are here in the tropics in the afternoon, probably in the cooler weather. You're looking out over the ocean. And then after that had dried, I decided I'd put a second layer on, and I had the blue really watered down, but the second layer of blue really didn't work. It was just too dark, and so I didn't put the second layer of the pink or the yellow on. I just left them there because I wanted a really pale sky. The sky's pale. Next time I do it, I won't be putting on a second wash of blue. And then I'd thought maybe I could replace the palm trees with fern trees, because they grow. I've actually got some of them growing in my garden. If you don't know what a tree fern is, it is a fern that grows like a tree. So it's got a big trunk and there's fern fronds at the top, and they grow very slowly. You can look them up by Googling, by searching for tree ferns. They're found in lots of places in Australia. But I just couldn't work out what to do with the fern trees, because they really belong in the scrub or the rainforest, and I didn't want to put her surrounded by rainforest. That would have been just too green and too heavy. I was planning on my next painting that I'm going to do, and it's going to be of a black swan. It's just going to be the face of the swan and the neck, and behind it will be lots of wattle flowers. They are beautiful yellow flowers that bloom all over Australia. So they would be just right, because wherever you are in Australia, you'll know about the wattle. Now, I've been watching lots of art videos on YouTube, and I've noticed that a lot of people do a figure and then they draw a big circle behind it and fill it in with a bright colour, and that always enhances the picture. But I thought, I'm not just going to put a big sun behind her head. It might be better than a white background, but it wouldn't really work. But suns are yellow and wattle is yellow. When I put a wattle tree behind her, and that is what I've ended up doing. At this point, the painting is looking very pale and uninteresting, and it's time to put in some darks. That's the nature of doing watercolour painting. You've got to start from the lightest colours and work all light, and then you gradually move towards dark. And now I'm going to start doing the darks. Now, I can't remember all of the colours that I used. I know with the lamb I mixed a yellow and a green, and I'm pretty sure it was the Shimke Volcano yellow because it is a granulating colour, and Daniel Smith Green Apatite Genuine, which is another granulating colour, because I really wanted him, the little lamb's green fur, to have a texture to it. And then after I'd painted it and it was about the right amount of dryness, I sprinkled it with salt, thinking that that would add plenty of extra texture. And then I had to leave the salt to dry, And of course, it was very rainy weather and very hot weather, and we had the catastrophe with the tree coming down, and I had to leave it overnight to dry because it just wasn't going to dry within 10 minutes or so. And after the tree catastrophe from next door, it was 4 days before I remembered the salt that I'd put on the lamb. And I thought, well, hopefully it's dry by now. And it wasn't. Well, it was, but it wasn't what I'd expected. The result was catastrophic. The thing that had happened was the humidity was so humid that the salt had absorbed all the water, and I had pale green streaks of watercolour running uphill into the sky from where I put the salt on the green paint. So the salt didn't work, and then I was a bit upset about not being able to get the streaks of green that floated up the page off. I don't know why it didn't go down, it went up. So then I decided I'd probably have to abandon it, but then I thought about that for a few more days and decided, well, just keep going, I'll work something out with it, and that's what I did. You can clearly see the salt that I had sprinkled on the lamb's coat to try to give it texture. It has absorbed the water from the atmosphere, and instead of drying and giving me nice texture on the lamb's coat, turned into pale green salty water and has run up from his tail up into the sky. I'll be putting some background colours in there shortly to disguise that green strip, which was provided for me by salt that absorbed the humidity from the atmosphere while I thought it was drying. Now, the thing about using this rough paper, it's the first time I've painted on rough paper for possibly 10 years or more, and as soon as my paintbrush hit it, it just felt wonderful. I love it. So I went out and I bought another pad of rough watercolour paper and a larger block as well. And I've already got another reasonably large, not huge, but much larger than this A4 size that I've got now, a block of watercolour paper from 10 years or more ago, and there's several sheets in that, so I'll probably be using that shortly. I'm not sure how I'll record myself painting on it because I don't know that I'll be able to fit it underneath my camera. Anyway, we'll see what happens when I get to use it. The thing with having the smaller sheets of paper that I'm using at the moment is very difficult to get fine details, smaller details. And the other part with this, using the rough paper, it's very difficult to do fine details on rough paper as well. So I'm making life extremely difficult for myself when it comes to doing their facial features with using rough paper and on a relatively small space. So that is a bit of a struggle as well. We'll see how I go. I don't think I did a brilliant job, but it was acceptable for now, with considering all the other things that's going wrong. I painted that shepherd's crook and the chain that's going from her hand to the lamb's collar. I painted them in some yellowy, orangey sort of colours, and then I painted over the top with gold, a couple of different gold watercolours. I've got a set of Derwent metallic watercolours that I've hardly ever used, but they were really good. Once I put some water on them and let it sit there for a bit, it was really good to use. I used a little bit of white designer's gouache that I've got left over from about 10 or 15 years ago. It's dried up in the tube, but it is still easy to use. I just dip the brush into the end of the tube and get a little bit of white out. I don't need lots, but I did use a bit of it on her skirt and various other parts of this painting. Strangely enough, one of my favourite memories of this little statue is the little gold shoes that she had on that were peeping out from underneath her skirt. So I had to make sure that I had something there that resembled the shoes. They were so brightly coloured gold. I haven't quite got the look right there, but the shoes at least are there. I think my painting style could probably be best described here as vaguely realistic and vaguely abstract. I'm never likely to get any more realistic than this, simply because I'm a photographer as well, and if I want something realistic, I'll just take a photo. Unless I can't get the photo and I just make it up, then it'll be even more abstract. I'm sorry about the shadows in this. It was, looks like I know there were times when I forgot to turn my little light on that I have my camera attached to. There were times I forgot to turn the camera on as well, but I think this video is long enough and you've got plenty of information about me painting. The bits that I've missed recording I don't think will really matter that much. Hopefully not anyway. But you can see when I didn't have my proper light on, the shadows popping onto the screen. But I'm trying to add the background in here now to give her some darks, particularly under the skirt on the ground. You know, should be shadows there, but I'm not putting actual shadows in. It's just darker areas and lighter areas to give a bit of texture and depth to the painting. Another thing I was struggling with, of course, is my usual struggle with the paint brushes. The brushes I've got to now are much better, but they just weren't totally perfect. And the thing I did a few days ago, like on Friday, I ordered some brushes from the Sydney art store, and they arrived on Monday. It was amazing. Coming interstate over the weekend, and I got them Monday morning, and I finished off her face and the lamb's face with one of my new brushes. I will be showing you me opening that in the next video, but the brushes I bought were things I've not been able to find in Brisbane, and I have been looking because I wanted to try them out. I didn't know if I'd like them or not, but they're fantastic. Well, the one that I've tried so far is absolutely fantastic. It is the silver black velvet number 2 round brush. It's a bit long. I was expecting it to be a bit shorter, and I thought I was going to have problems with it, but I didn't. It was fantastic. So that's it. I'll show you in the next video. I'm going to be doing the next video will have some swatching and a few things, opening some things I've bought over the past couple of months. I've got lots of tiny porcelain dishes that I use for palettes now, because I don't want to waste my watercolour. I could do a whole painting just with the bits of paint that are left over. So I decided I was going to put a flower garden behind the little ornament, and I was just going to have a random lot of colours of flowers growing behind, and I didn't record me painting those flowers because I just wanted to sit away from my table in another chair and do that like a random doodle and see what happened. And I was happy with the result. I just used a few of the colours that were in my little porcelain dishes, but you'll get the idea of what I did because I used the same technique later on when I was doing the wattle tree. Another thing I did was I indicated the crosshatch pattern on her top, which was in gold on the original statue. I got started by adding some orange and yellow dots, just randomly scattering them to try to represent some sort of a background with flowers, and there it is after I have added more flowers. I also got a green colouring in pencil, not a watercolour pencil, and it was just ordinary colouring pencil, and I made very light drawings of the branches of the wattle tree that I was going to put behind her. I didn't use watercolour pencils because when I painted over them they would have muddied the yellow of the flowers. Well, you've got to be careful when you're using watercolour pencil for draw. When you're doing a watercolour painting, you can have an awful mess. Now it's time for the leaves. I'll just put them in a similar fashion to the way I painted the flowers behind her. That's the orange and blue and yellow flowers, not the wattle flowers. Well, let that dry and then I will put another coat over the top of it. I think the second go at the yellow was too much. I should have left that out and just worked on the green leaves because it started competing too heavily with her hair colour. Then I had to change her hair a bit. So I still didn't get that streak of green paint totally disguised. There's a sky. I wasn't really happy with the sky because I ended up accidentally making the blue a little bit too dark. But anyway, it's there. And the wattle flowers, well, they're a little bit too yellow for her with her hair in front. But apart from all of that, I'm happy with it. I think I've learned a few lessons, and in the next painting I won't make those mistakes again. Although I was aware of the yellow thing behind her head and I did change her hair a bit, but I still think that the wattle is a little bit too bright. But that's life. I painted the branches brown and the flowers yellow and the green leaves as well. And then it was finished. I decided that was it. I'd done all I could. I mean, there was things I could have kept doing, like I could have tried to tone down the yellow of the wattle flowers. I did go over her hair again with made it more orange to make it come forward a bit, because it's a warmer colour than the yellow. but still I think I could have knocked back the flowers a bit, but I wasn't going to try it because I thought I could end up with even more of a mess. So I just left it, decided you got to stop somewhere. It's been a struggle. I've got to the end, so I've put my little initials down the bottom right hand corner and took off the tape from around the outsides of it. And that was the end. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll have another one out a lot sooner. I think I've got it all. I'll just put the bits and pieces together that I've already got recorded, and so it'll probably be another week or so before I get it done, because I've got other things that I've got to do as well. And then I'll start working on the swan. That shouldn't take a long time, because I've got a photo for that. One of the photos, if you've been watching my Birds of Forest Lake videos, you will see black swans in a few of them swimming around in the lake. So I have got photos. I won't have all the drama and the trauma of trying to do something without any reference, which is what I did here. It wouldn't have been so bad here if I didn't want to have in my mind that I could make it look exactly like her, and that's what I needed to do. But I didn't. Once I got over that idea, it went much more smoothly. And the other thing that I did, which I haven't mentioned, is the chain that she's holding. It is attached to the lamb's collar around the lamb's neck, and that shepherd's crook that she's holding. I painted over them with metallic gold paint, because I've got a set of the Derwent metallic watercolours, and they were really good. You just got to put a bit of water on them and let the paint dissolve a bit. Put a drop of water and let it sit there for a few minutes, and then you get plenty of colour, and I thought it worked well. Anyway, have a look at the picture. It is subtle, but I didn't want something that was going to stand out and punch me in the eye, saying, hey, look at me, I'm all gold and pretty. And she's got gold shoes as well. And I did a lattice work pattern over her top and sleeves, and that was sort of gold. I painted it with ordinary colour, then I touched up bits of it with gold. She had that design on her top. I remembered that I had actually drawn that a little bit into the sketch, just to remind myself that that needed to go in. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and if you haven't subscribed, a subscription would be really helpful. Then YouTube might start showing my videos to more people. So thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next video. So bye bye for now.